and welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for what is our final webinar for the year of 2020-21. That's a couple extra 20s. You can tell it's been a long road to get here to the end of the year. Anyway, we thank you for joining us today, and I just have a couple of quick reminders before we get into the good stuff of this session. Our session's being recorded, so we will share the recording with you after we conclude. And as always, if you have questions for our presenters today, please feel free to use either the chat box or the Q&A to submit those, and we will address those at the end. Speaking of our presenters, today we have our VP of Sales, Kelly Lytle, who will sort of run the show, and our founder, Mike Pepe. So without further ado, I will go ahead and hand things over to Kelly, and he will get us started.
Excellent. And a couple of big thank yous. Thank you to everyone who is joining us today. And also thank you to everyone who may watch this at a later date in time. We appreciate it. And we're glad to spend a little bit of time with you. Also, because it is a very, very special week, I have to give a big thank you to Claudia, who you just heard with the introduction. This coming Saturday, Claudia is getting married. And so if you get a moment, please wish her congratulations in the chat area, because that's an incredibly special day. And Claudia is just an absolutely amazing person. So Claudia, congratulations, and thank you for everything that you do. So with that, I am extraordinarily privileged and honored to lead this session and to have with us the founder, chief strategy officer, and very recent recipient of a major award, Mr. Mike Pepe. Mike, thank you for being here with us.
Thanks, Kelly. Really appreciate it. Appreciate everyone's time today.
Awesome. So obviously, we're here to talk about how critical it is around prioritizing client information, prioritizing policy information, and what that can mean in terms of helping you proactively manage, proactively service your book of business. And what we're also going to do along the way, though, is layer in some of the challenges that come with that, because I think if it were easy, it would be commonplace across the industry. And as we know, I think it's growing in relevance, growing in importance, but it's something that we're constantly talking to prospects and customers about, finding the best ways to service that book of business. And so we want to walk through some of those challenges, and along with that, give you some very real, very tangible examples of how to go about thinking about your book of business, the critical pieces of information, and really helping you focus your attention in how you group that information, how it can pay off in how you service your clients, and ultimately help set your business up for success while simultaneously providing the best service and care possible for your policy owners and ultimately their beneficiaries. And so we're going to walk through all that a little bit, but before we do, really what I want to do is start off by sharing a little bit more on Proformex, and especially the why, and the why behind why Mike started Proformex, why we exist today. And, Mike, I've heard you say this time and time again, life insurance done the right way, or that Proformex believes in a better way to service life insurance and service policies. Before we dive into the meat of the discussion today, take us through a little bit of what that means for you, what it meant for your practice.
Yeah, it's been a passion of mine, and it's now the mission of Proformex and all our team members to really protect client outcomes, and to do that, these policies are enforced 10, 20, sometimes 30, 40 years in the future. So you got to make a dedicated commitment to doing that. And it all starts with nurturing your current relationships. Taking care of your clients after the sale is a huge, huge value add, not only for yourself, but for your clients and your relationships. It helps you attract new opportunities, and it helps you grow your business. But at the core of everything we do, we're always tying back to protecting the policyholder and ultimately those beneficiaries, because the insurance was bought for a reason, and we want to make sure it's there when it's needed the most.
That's fantastic. And with that said, I feel like there could be a catch, Mike, and you lived it, you breathed it. talk about the challenges, right? Because let's be, fully open and transparent. Proformex exists to help the industry solve many of these challenges. And that's why you created it. That's why we're here. Take us through from your perspective, right? Because we see this, whether it's on the prospect side, whether it's our customer success team, everyone at Proformex, we see this every day. We're working constantly with our customers through these challenges. But through your perspective, A, as someone who's been in the industry for as long as you have, and B, somebody who really built Proformex to solve a very particular need. Take us through what some of the challenges that you see across the industry.
Yeah, for the most part, every agent and advisor that I talk to, they truly want to do the right thing for their clients. It's great to make that sale, but you feel good at knowing that you're making a difference in that policyholder's life and their family. You want to be proactive, you want to stay on top of it, but it becomes very challenging. The more policies you have, the more products that are sold across multiple carriers. And let's be honest, there's not enough time in the day. You're out there prospecting for new clients, you're servicing and meeting with current clients, so to take the time and the energy to stay on these policies with a manual process, it just becomes overwhelming, especially when you're working with carriers and trying to, call or email or fax them and get information and pull that in a timely manner. When you go out and deliver information to clients, statements from one carrier to another, statements within a carrier between products can be different. Illustrations can be 10, 20, 30 pages. So there's a lot of information that's being passed on to policyholders, and it's overwhelming for them. The data is all over the place, so that's one thing that I'm proud about. We help you organize the data and get it in a spot where you could find and prioritize things. And the biggest thing we see, and I see, is agents want to do the right thing. Everyone wants to do the right thing, but it's hard to know where to start, especially if you're in the business for 5, 10, 15, 20 years, you have policies all over the place. It's hard to make that commitment, and that it's becomes overwhelming for yourself and your staff. So, we're here to alleviate all those challenges.
Yeah, and speaking of that, I think one of the most common items that we hear is, oh my goodness, where do I start? I'm glad you said that. Where do I start? There's too much information to collect up front. There's too much information to update on an ongoing basis. There's too many policy values. There's too much happening with the client. How am I going to stay in front of it? And whoa, it does become very overwhelming, or at least it can appear overwhelming. And so, Mike, take us through a little bit, just, what was it like for you? And then how did you start to think about, okay, there has to be a better way to kind of systematize this or operate through all of this information in a more thoughtful way?
Yeah, for me, when I first started, it was amazing for an individual policy, all the data points that are associated with it. It could be 100, it could be 200 different data points. And, it becomes very hard to track each and every one of those. Now with Proformex, we set up the database so you could track those and add them. But, looking at all the different data points, what are the similarities across different carriers and products that we can track consistently, and really going to give you a holistic view across your entire portfolio. So we really spent a lot of time looking at all the individual data points, but then we grouped them together across all policies to give some consistency and be able to track back to the client's needs and do it in a format in a way that's manageable on an ongoing basis.
And how difficult was this when you were doing it all manually?
I spent hours on individual policy reviews, looking at all the information from the illustration, from the statement, figuring out what I needed to showcase for my client. How do I put it together in a format for them to easy to understand, and for us to understand how it's actually performing, so, I wanted to identify the key things for policies. And the biggest one is it going to be there when I need it? So how long is this policy going to be enforced? What is the projected lapse age? That's first and foremost. How long is the coverage going to stay in force? The next one was, how much coverage do I have? Is it adequate for my original goals and my current needs? What's the death benefit? Then what's the cost of this thing? That's great, but can I afford it today? Can I afford it long-term? And is it costing me what I anticipated it for me to cost for the long-term? So those 3 data points were the key, monitoring and tying back to the client's needs to really simplify all this. And if there's issues with one or any of those data points, there's bigger issues with the policy, and you could dig a little deeper and really do some in-depth analysis if and when you need to at that point.
Yeah, and I want to stay there for a moment, because I think what you just said is critical, right? If you need to dig a little deeper, or if and when you need to do further analysis, and it's all predicated from how are a handful of key data points. So in this kind of ocean of information, right? There's a handful of key data points that you were able to prioritize, you were able to focus on, and that let you focus the rest of your business, the servicing aspect of it, on the right things. And that's what I think is always so impactful when we're talking to our clients and we're having these conversations regularly, is to say, let us help you think through how to be intentional about how you're setting up the system, how you want to manage your policies on an ongoing basis, and then B, be intentional about how you track that on an ongoing basis. And ultimately, I think what becomes really impactful, and it's exactly what you talked about, is can we help you do less, but do it even better? So you're focused on the right priorities, you're intentional about where your time is spent, and you're ultimately servicing those policies and those clients that are most in need, are going to be most beneficial to the policy owners, and ultimately help your business. And so let's go, kind of below the surface of all this information. And Mike, take us through, from your perspective, what you saw when it came to grouping policy information, prioritizing it, and ultimately kind of the payoff of it. So I'll stop there and let you kind of take the reins right here.
Yeah, when I first thought through this, there's really 2 groupings or buckets of information. You got the policy information and the contract information, which is typically never going to change once we load it into the system. The issue date of the policy, the carrier, the product, the policy number, the anniversary date, the premium due date, if it's a term policy, the conversion date, who the owner, the insured, and beneficiaries are. That gives you all the information to help you support managing your book of business holistically. And that stuff's never going to change once you get it in there, which is nice, because that's a lot of the heavy lifting. From there, you go into the policy values and the tracking information. That's the stuff that you should monitor on a regular frequency. If it's part of your practice to do it on an annual basis, great. If it's every 3 years, whatever it may be, but those are the value points that you got to update. Kelly, you could click the button and it'll bring it up too. The policy values, that's that death benefit, making sure that death benefit is still where it needs to be, making sure the premium is still what you thought and anticipated it would be, the cash value and the surrender value of permanent policies, obviously, so what the cash and the accumulations in there. But it also is going to help you identify if that's performing. Obviously, if the cash value is on track and building up, it's performing the way it was projected. And then the tracking information, the big one is, let's tie back to the client. What is the current client's age and what is the lapse age of the policy? Are they going to outlive that policy? That's the biggest concern that I had. If they're going to outlive the policy, it's not going to help them. It's not going to help their beneficiaries. So you need to be all over that. You need to find those sooner than later so they can hopefully fix the current policy. If not, find a better solution, but at least be able to communicate that issue with the client sooner than later. So they're not shocked when they get a premium notice that goes up 400%, or they get a lapse notice in the mail and they lose all their coverage. We don't want that to happen to any of our clients. And utilizing our system the way it is, once we get this basic information in the system, it's going to help set up all the insight, all the analytics that you would ever want across your entire book. But then updating those 6 data points on a consistent basis moving forward, that's where you could spend your time and energy on. And then you could put it, utilizing our system and our reporting, you could put it in a consistent deliverable to the client that's very easy for them to understand and takes the complexity out of it. And it's tied back to their needs each and every year.
Yeah, and talk a little bit about the time savings for you. So what I think matters is there's a handful of data points that get you started, right? And then we know this is a long-term solution, right? It's a solution for the lifetime of your business, obviously, right? Like the policies are going to be enforced for ideally 10, 20, 30, 40 years. So we want to live with that policy. So there's a handful of data points to get started. There's a handful that you're updating on an ongoing basis, whether that cadence is every year, every 2 years, every 3 years. It's all part of what matters inside how you want to run your business, how it works best for you and your team. And then the payoff, and we're going to talk about a few different use cases here and some of the benefits, but just really quickly, Mike, take us through how this helped save time for you and helped you and really your whole team just be more efficient.
Yeah, first and foremost, it's that line of sight and visibility across all our enforced policies. There's no more guessing. There's no more worrying about a policy falling through the cracks. It's all in one spot. We could easily see what's going on. We could group them by owners and see all the policies associated with an owner. Group it by insured, see all the policies for that particular insured, and for the beneficiaries too. You know, what beneficiaries on what policies, you know, that's all information that if we didn't have in Proformex, we would have to go manually back into individual files or old CRMs and try to pull out that information, spend hours on trying to pull it together that you should have simply. With our platform, anything you want is at your fingertips. You could do advanced filtering for anything you want across your entire portfolio and really bubble up exactly what you're looking for to focus your time and your attention on for that particular day, week, or month throughout the year.
That's awesome. And so, you know, Mike, you've been living in post-sale servicing, policy servicing, in-force management for a long time, for many years here. So as one of the kind of the godfathers of the in-force management, I know you have some stories to share. And so what I'm hoping you can do, I'm going to throw out a couple of data points. And what I want you to do is see if you can relate that data point to a real life client interaction or story that you had from your experience as to why that particular data point mattered. So I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit here. Okay.
All right.
All right. So the first one is issue date.
Okay. So, you know, right off the bat with the issue date, that gives you a good sense of reference of how old the policy are and how old the product is too. For me, when I'm looking at issue dates, especially if it's an older VUL product, you know, maybe from the 90s or early 2000s that didn't have a lot of side accounts or a lot of riders to add to it. You know, there's better products, better mortality tables out there now. So searching and filtering by issue dates for older policies that are past surrender charges, and hopefully the cash value and the surrender values are equal. Right there is a valuable place to find and prioritize and have meaningful conversations with upgrade and potentially older policies and then newer, better, faster coverages for them. That's going to, again, protect and bring more value to the client. And, you know, that simple issue date, it tells you a lot on the policies, and being able to filter, show me all policies 10 years or older for index, term, whole life, you name it, filtering your data at one place. You know, it's hard to do that if you don't have a system like Proformex to get line of sight on that data. You know, imagine that you know, if you didn't have this, you're going into a CRM, you're trying to, hopefully you entered the issue date. Most people don't, or you're looking at as sold data from a filing cabinet and trying to pull that out. This is at your fingertips, and it gives you that ability to focus in on exactly the policies you want to look at to put the clients in better situations.
That's awesome. Okay. Data point number 2, anniversary.
Anniversary date for me, that was my trigger point for my annual policy reviews. So I knew on a monthly basis exactly how many anniversaries I had. I knew each month after that what was coming up in the pipeline, and it helped us set our process and procedure to initiate reviews and to complete reviews. And it also gave me a touch point with my clients, utilizing the anniversary date to generate the review and have that interaction and provide that additional value. And again, nurture that relationship. That led into cross-selling opportunities for growth. It also led into client referrals for me as well. And again, it was all triggered from a simple anniversary date, a nice little touch point for a review with utilizing Proformex to be able to do it in 5 or 10 minutes compared to hours and hours if you're doing it manually. Huge value add. And again, driving right from the anniversary date.
Yep, and I'll echo that, because that is a use case we see all of the time. And it sounds very straightforward and very easy, but the power of it is that single data point, those simple steps, when used inside Proformex, will save you hours and hours of time, and also create that schedule so that this doesn't feel so overwhelming, right? You're always sort of staying on schedule and knowing, hey, this month we have these items to do in terms of policy reviews or client reach outs and that sort of thing. And so that's something we see quite often with our customers. Okay, 2 more, and then we'll move on. Cash value. And I know this one should be easy for you, so I'm sure you've got some stories in.
Yeah, the values, right? If it's a permanent policy and it's building up cash and accumulating, internally in the policy, seeing that number go up each and every year, tracking that historically year over year within Proformex, you could see when and if there's an issue, and you could get ahead of that. And obviously, looking at those cash values, if you're searching for cash values below a certain amount, there's an issue with that policy based on the hypotheticals. It's not getting the crediting rate that you anticipated, and you could get ahead of those things. So tracking those not only on an annual basis, but tying it back year over year, that's great. I know how the current cash value is today, but how was it last year? How was it the year before? Are we taking a steady trend up, or do we have some issues with this policy? You can learn a lot by how the policy is performing, just watching the values internally in the policy.
Yep. And this last one, it's a data point that needs no introduction. You've already mentioned it.
Yeah.
Lapse age.
I mean, that's the holy grail of post-sale monitoring here. We want to make sure that your client does not outlive the coverage. That's the worst thing that could happen, is that the policy lapses before the client does. So monitoring that lapse age, tying it back to the client's needs. It doesn't matter. It could be a great policy, but if it's not going to stay in force as long as you need it to, there's an issue there. So knowing that sooner than later means the world to your client, and it's going to help you fix it or find a better solution. And you don't have to have those awkward conversations with clients and delivering bad news.
Yeah. And there's a real kind of dual benefit that comes from this, because everything that you're talking about here you're talking about creating a meaningful reason to engage with your client. And you're also helping manage their risk, manage risk in your own book of business, working in the service of protecting policy owners and their beneficiaries. But also, as you do that, how often did it result in upsell opportunities or cross-sale opportunities or new product sales or referrals? Because look, the service matters, but also we want to help you grow your business. And I know that's something that you've talked about often. So take us through that a little bit.
Yeah, Proformex is all about giving you a proactive process for in-force servicing of the policies and monitoring that performance based on the client's needs. So, you're bringing value added to your client. They know that you're protecting their outcomes, and that leads into good things, whether it's replacements, whether it's new sales, cross sales, referrals. If they feel comfortable with what you said you're going to do and what you're doing, it's a win-win for them and it's a win-win for you. Me personally, by focusing on post-sale, it set me apart and gave me a differentiator from all my competitors, because I wasn't just delivering a policy, I was delivering my ongoing support and service and monitoring for that insured and their family for as long as that policy was in force. So it helped me strengthen my relationships. It gave me the ability to show that I was one of their advisors for life, and that turned into new sales, referrals, and larger, bigger opportunities as well.
Yeah, and I think I think that matters because, again, we're working. Our mission, protecting policy owners and their beneficiaries, and we want to help everyone we're working with attract, nurture, and grow their businesses by looking inward at their existing business and their existing clients and policies. And so, Mike, kind of bring it all together, everything we've talked about, over the last half hour or so in terms of what it means, for everyone listening in.
Yeah, the big one is know what you sold. If you're thinking about your own book of business right now, do you know how many policies you have in force? Do you know your total death benefit, your premium, your cash value, your surrender value? It's hard to know all that stuff. It sounds like it should be simple and easy, but if you wrote through multiple carriers and products, that's hard information to get line of sight on. So first and foremost, we're going to help you know what you sold, give you that visibility and that consolidation across your entire book. And then we're going to tie it into, that's great, we know what you sold, but how is it performing based on your client's needs, which I believe is more important, because again, you could have a great policy, but if it's not performing the way the client needs, is it really serving its purpose? And then we're going to help you focus your time and attention, because we know that in-force management can't be all that you do. You need to be out there prospecting. You need to be out there, making closes and selling new business. So we're going to help you find and prioritize, based on bubbling up at-risk policies or opportunities, giving you the ability to add advanced search capabilities, so you could really focus in exactly what you're looking for within your book of business. We're going to give you the reporting that's consistent. You could design the report type, how it looks and feels, what you want to present the client, set up that template, and now it's ready to go each and every time for you. That is huge for the client because they know what's coming each and every year. It's very easy for them to understand, and it takes the complexity out of them. And again, with our reporting tool, it takes the work away from you once you set up your template. And the biggest thing is you're going to be able to have meaningful interactions with your clients. They're not going to catch you off guard if they give you a call out of the blue. You're going to have the information at your fingertips at all times that you could respond to them in the proper manners and know what you're talking about.
Yep. And, I think what is so impactful and I think so critical about all of this is there's a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of different pieces of it, and having one place, one single system of record where all of this information can be stored, one system, right, to help you know what you're working on, know how to go about your week in, your week out, and everything, and just bring it all together to help you focus on what you need to focus on, help simplify this sort of task of, okay, what is happening in my book of business and how am I managing everything after it's been sold? So,
and I will say, with all the data points that are available, if you could just lock into those 5 or 6 data points to update, it takes all the noise away from that. You know what you need to do for each and every policy. Once that statement comes in or that in-force comes in, you're literally updating 5 or 6 things. Literally, it's going to take you a minute. You hit save and you're ready to go there. It takes the noise out of it. It becomes very manageable for you and your staff, regardless if you have 10 policies or 10,000 policies.
That's awesome. I feel like those are great closing remarks, but anything else before we open it up for Q&A?
You got to start somewhere. Everyone is a little different. Obviously, I believe in the agents and advisors wanting to do the right thing. I know you probably feel overwhelmed. You think it's going to take a lot of time to get up and running, but we have a great team here. Our onboarding team will work with you every step of the way. They'll help you go as fast or as slow as you need to. But at the end of the day, we want to help you support your clients and make sure those policies perform the way they intended. So policy beneficiaries, and more importantly, their beneficiaries are protected.
Awesome. All right. With that, I will stop sharing. We will see where we're at. If there are any questions out there, I'll check the Q&A. Looks like there's a few that have come in. All right. Well, let's get moving. So, okay. This one looks like it's in regards to what to do from an ongoing perspective. So, Mike, can you take us through, you mentioned there were a handful of data points that you wanted that we should focus on the ongoing management side. Can you take us through what those data points are? And actually, that's it. Take us through what those data points are.
So more importantly, what they are, how you get them each and every year, So with our platform, we automate your request for statements and illustrations, carrier documents. So you could dictate the timing. So if you want it at anniversary, we could set it up so the system requests statements and illustrations on your behalf. So you don't have to spend your time collecting the documents to even start the process of pulling those data points in. But once those come back to you, it's simply as, okay, I need to look at the annual statement. Give me the current death benefit, current premium, current cash value, current surrender value. And you plug those 4 data points into the platform, it's monitoring for the current year, how it's performing. Then from the in-force illustration, if the lapse age is not on the annual statement, you could get the projected lapse age from the current in-force and you're up and running. So, that's the easiest way to do it. It would be great if every annual statement had the lapse age on it. Most of them don't, so that's why you need the in-force. If you are working with carriers and products that supply it on the annual statement, then there's no need to request an in-force as well if they're giving you the projected current lapse age. Yep.
Let's continue the kind of information thread here with a question. How do you manage to get the data from the carriers? I've been in the business for decades, and the carriers basically cut you off if you don't have an active license with them. How do you handle this?
So a couple different ways. Obviously, if the carriers cut you off, it's going to be hard for you as an agent to get that data. But again, remember, if you still have that relationship with the policyholder, we could do a request at the policyholder level where that request is a first party request from the policyholder. That carrier needs to get back to that policyholder with the requested information. And then it's just a point where you request that policyholder to forward it on to you once they get it. I've seen that work well in the instances where the agent no longer has a relationship with the carrier, but they still work with the policyholder. Again, the policyholder can get that data and we can automate the request at the policyholder level for you.
Yep. And then also, again, depending on authorization level, carrier, and who it is that we're working with, there may be an opportunity for us to receive data feeds on the policy. Those authorizations are given at the distributor level, and everything like that. And so, again, depending on where you are on the policy hierarchy and where you are, if you're a distributor, can often authorize these data feeds. And now what I will say is those data feeds provide very, very critical information to help update the policy values that we talked about, but they still don't provide all of the information that is necessary. So it's really about all of the pieces working in tandem, whether the data is coming in through a data feed, whether the data was provided to us directly, or you're getting it through statements and illustrations. And then it's about working your own system for managing in-force policies in terms of how you're taking that information and laying it out for your clients in order to provide policy reviews upon each anniversary, if that's what it is that you're trying to accomplish. Or maybe it's track premium payments to make sure that your commissions are getting paid in the first few years, whatever the case may be. So it's about weaving these pieces in inside your own business. And so there's a couple of follow-up questions that are also statements that I think Mike and I will speak for Mike here. both agree with wholeheartedly. One, the carriers need to address this. Yes, absolutely. And then appreciate you lobbying for ages, because the fact of the matter is access to information inside, for post-sale servicing and everything is a critical need. And it's improved just in the last handful of years. It's improved significantly in terms of, what information can be accessible. And I think, I'll speak sort of candidly. I think our platform does an amazing job of not only bringing that information in, but making it accessible for you and helping you take action on it. But there is no question that this industry as a whole needs to get up the curve on data accessibility and the velocity of which that data can be accessed and what pieces of information are available. Because the fact is, there are critical pieces of information that just are tucked away and locked away, and a lot of systems that just aren't accessible at the moment. And so for us to get to where we want to go and everyone wants to go, it's a collective effort to work toward that moment when that data is accessible and we're able to ultimately use it to take the right actions at the right time on the right policies to protect owners and beneficiaries. So Mike, I know you have a lot of opinions on that, so go for it.
Well, I guess the big one I'll say is, this system is never going to replace the advisor. It's meant to, support the advisor and be a tool for them to really service their clients. But at the end of the day, our system can track and identify policy issues. But if you're not outreaching to the client, it's not going to serve its purpose. So it goes hand in hand with the advisor. But the advisor is the key with the relationship with the clients. Good or bad information needs to be shared with them on a timely manner. And this system will give you that information so you could have those meaningful interactions. But you need to address it. If you have the system, or we see the data from a distributor, that's great. But without the agent's involvement, you're not going to be able to protect the beneficiaries if and when the time comes.
Yeah, and ultimately too, the information, it's not just about having the information, it's about what you can do with it. And are you able to take action on it? And are you able to, focus attention where it needs to, prioritize attention where you need to, and all those things. So I think that's a critical piece of it too. So I think that's it from a question standpoint. Thank you to everyone who tuned in. Greatly appreciated. As always, please visit us anytime we're out there. You can find us on social media. Visit us at www.proformex.com. Please reach out at any time. And Mike, any parting thoughts from your side?
No, just thanks for your time today, and enjoy the holiday season, and take that first step. You'll never know unless you try. I encourage everyone to take the first step and come learn more about Proformex, see a demo, see how we could help you support yourself, your practice, and your clients.
All right. Thank you.